too late to choose your calling over your career. When I decided to take early retirement a couple years ago, it was a bold move for me because it was a sudden decision. I had not planned to retire early, even though it was possible for me to do so. From my outward appearance, many people said you looked too young to retire. But as you know, retirement does not have a certain look. What they didn't know was that I wasn't tired, but rather I was now going to pursue my calling. Steve Harvey says, your career is what you paid for, and your calling is what you're made for. So I would like you to think of your career as an occupation, a profession that you intentionally engaged in for most of or all your working life, and your calling as a conviction that you should be pursuing another field of work, another profession that you never thought about when you were starting out your career. Sometimes we find ourselves in careers that we have lost passion for and no longer enjoy. And we want to get out of them, but we don't know how. So we settle because a paycheck comes in on time and for many other reasons. I once read a report that says many non retired Canadians between the ages of 45 to 59 are undecided about their retirement plans, with some saying they don't know when they plan to retire, and others, they don't plan to retire at all. And the reasons they give for their indecision include factors like income, home ownership, marital status, and pension. Another factor is there is no longer a mandatory retirement age of 65 in Canada. So many people just continue working and never take the opportunity to retire early. And of course, many people would not even know what to do with themselves if they retired early. I think some of you here today can probably relate to that. And let me tell you about another big reason that caused people not to retire early. It is called fear. Does false evidence appearing real come to mind? That is exactly what fear is. And it can cause us to feel sick, to feel anxious, to feel depressed, feel uncertain, and produce many other negative emotions. Fear can even cause us to miss out on great opportunities. I've heard it said that life opens up opportunities to us, and we either take them or we stay afraid of taking them. Now, I'd like you to think of fear differently. Think of it as fearless excitement with anticipation and relentlessness. Do you see the difference? These are all positive emotions that can drive us to do great things. So, if you have waited 20, 30, even 40 years being afraid, being fearful, this is your notice today that fear is no longer an option. It is time to soar. You were not born for a box. You were born to be bold. When I made that bold move to retire early, many people wondered why. Some were skeptical. Others wondered if I even knew what I was doing. But I had 3 experiences in succession that led me to make this bold move. I could no longer ignore the warning signs that were pointing me towards early retirement. One day, as I sat in an auditorium with a large group of people, I felt as if the speaker was talking directly to me, and something that he said resonated on the inside and convicted me into start thinking about making a decision around retiring early. Not wanting to believe my thoughts, I asked someone else, an astute person in the auditorium, if he felt the same way about this talk, making an important decision of some kind. And he said yes. Now I felt even more convicted, but I soon dismissed the thought because I had no reason to retire early. Several months passed. Then I had the second experience through a more compelling speech. This time, my employer was offering an early retirement package as an incentive for people to leave the organization. Knowing that I would be eligible for early retirement during the time frame of the package, I decided to look into it, primarily to see how my finances would be impacted. I still had a mortgage to finish paying off, like probably some of you do. And I also now met with a trusted financial advisor who gave me good advice on how to manage my finances going forward. So, feeling excited, I decided and I started to complete the application. Then I stopped. I was afraid that I would be retiring with no real plans. I had not prepared a bucket list. Neither had I planned for some of the usual retirement activities like spending more time with family, traveling, or even taking up a new hobby. But not long after I shelved the application, I had the third experience in a most compelling and unique way. I would begin what would be the last of many positions that I'd held in this large organization where I'd spent my entire career. One day, some of my staff told me about a wonderful employee who had passed away unexpectedly. I could see and I could tell that her death was upsetting for them, and so I empathized, but thought no more about it, considering I did not know the individual. About a year later, I would come to learn about another unexpected death, this time through a new employee who joined my unit. As fate would have it, on arriving at the office one morning, I noticed a woman sitting in the waiting area of the lobby, someone whom I'd never seen before. And after a while, you do get used to people coming in and out of the building, even though you may never have an interaction with them. But remembering that a new employee would be joining my unit this week, I approached her and asked if her name was Belinda, not her real name, of course. And she said yes. So, knowing that her supervisor would be coming in the office later that morning, I invited her to come to my office instead. We talked about the unit and other topics covered during an orientation. Then the conversation moved to small talk, with me sharing with Belinda some career highlights, personal challenges, and personal successes. When I shared with her how I went to school on the weekends while I was completing one of my degrees, she said it was not possible for her to do that because she had to care for her mother on the weekends. And she explained to me what happened to her mom. Being familiar with a similar incident, I shared my story with her. And to my surprise, it was Belinda's mom who was involved in that horrific car accident. I was stunned. But looking at her, I could see a resemblance, and they had the same last name. About this time, her supervisor called to inquire of her whereabouts, and I told him that she was with me and would be coming to see him momentarily. Then something amazing happened as she was about to leave my office. She looked at me, and in a soft voice, she said, "I don't know why I should tell you this, Claudette, but I will. There was this wonderful lady who could have taken early retirement a few years ago, and she didn't. And soon after, she passed away." Without disclosing to her that I too was contemplating early retirement, but was indecisive about it, I simply said, "Thank you for telling me that." And she left. Well, those words coming from someone whom I just met for the very first time jolted me into taking early retirement. And so, with goosebumps visible on my arms, tears welling up in my eyes, and a knot in my stomach, I closed my office door, finished completing the application, submitted it by the deadline, and was approved for early retirement. What is also remarkable is that Belinda joined the unit just a short while before the application deadline. And I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had not taken early retirement when I did. Would tragedy of some kind force me to do so? Who knows? We don't have all the answers in life. Not long ago, however, I was having a flashback of the conversation with Belinda, and of course, not her real name. And so I reached out to her as I was now curious to find out who was that wonderful lady that could have taken early retirement but did not and passed away. She told me that it was her aunt, who was also a high ranking official in the same large organization that I worked for. I believe there is an appointed time to fulfill destiny. Because as I look over these experiences, I don't think it was possible for me to simply ignore or dismiss them. I believe it was my destiny. So, borrowing from the proverb, don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today is still good advice for all of us. Now, I am making a transition from a successful career in public sector management into a calling to help others embrace destiny, be resilient, and put faith in action when hope seems elusive. In June of last year, I graduated with a Master of Divinity and was valedictorian of the graduating class. Presently, I am pursuing my doctorate in ministry. But more excitingly, I will have the opportunity to release my first book later this year that will provoke individuals to think about purpose and take bold steps to fulfill destiny. What I am doing now has confirmed for me that I'm fulfilling that calling, my destiny. I'm embracing it. So I leave you with these two questions today. Number one, what will you do when destiny comes knocking at your door? And number two, can you ignore destiny, the difference between your calling and your career? Thank you.